Welcome, Gunrunner.
Cancel culture. There are two very strong opinions on this. The first group of people consider this to be something new, something brought about by the so-called woke left and the vocal minority of Twitter, and something that was created purely for censoring controversial opinions and free speech. On the flip side, there are a bunch of folk who will argue that cancel culture is nothing new, that it's been around since the very creation of the first media, and something that evolves with the times to make the world a better place. Whichever side of the fence you fall on, there's no doubting that it's become the new buzzword for the mainstream media, and has very much risen to the forefront of today's reporting. The rise of social media networks like Twitter and Facebook have very much played a big part in this, and there's literally no avoiding it from the moment you open a browser window on the internet. These online forums have seen a number of very prominent and hugely popular books, films and TV shows accused of being racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic and many more offensive things besides. Perhaps a sign of the times, possibly intentional, or perhaps maybe just misguided. There's no escaping the analysis, and these revelations usually lead to the properties being heavily edited, slapped with warnings, or even cancelled completely. In this video I'm going to be looking at 5 video games that are licensed from TV shows that have recently fallen victim to cancel culture, and pondering on whether we should be deleting these from existence or telling Twitter to get a life. I'll let you all decide for yourselves. When it comes to cancel culture and TV shows, there's nobody who's censored more than Disney. There were the issues with Gina Carano's tweets and The Mandalorian, the racial themes of The Song of the South and The Lady and the Tramp, and there's also been the more recent controversy over Snow White and the so-called non-consensual kiss. And there's been plenty of others too. But probably the biggest story to come out of the House of the Mouse was the rather shocking warnings that were slapped all over episodes of The Muppet Show on their wokely curated streaming service. Before each episode, Disney has inserted a statement richly confessing this program includes negative depictions and or mistreatment of peoples or cultures. These stereotypes were wrong then and are wrong now. Rather than remove this content, we want to acknowledge its harmful impact, learn from it, and spark conversation to create a more inclusive future together. A separate warning cautions that viewers will be exposed to tobacco depictions, in case children suddenly take up smoking and sue them, or something equally absurd. Considering the huge popularity of the Muppets over the years, there's been surprisingly few video games based on Jim Henson's creation outside of edutainment style packages. So I'm just going to focus on this one, Pigs in Space for the Atari 2600. Not only was this the first video game to be based on the Muppets, it also features a selection of different themes that are almost guaranteed to offend and disgust audiences, such as chick invaders, pasteroids, and Escape from the Planet of the Gonzoid. With disgusting content like that, I probably should have put a stronger warning on this video, and I can only apologise for the shocking imagery that's currently appearing on your screen. In 2018, Cartoon Network favourite Johnny Bravo, which originally debuted on our screens back in July 1997, became one of the first victims of cancel culture, as a small but very group of people decided that he was a rampant misogynist. Their reasoning was that he was seen constantly chatting up women in the cartoon, in a forceful and alpha male-like nature. They said that Bravo refused to give up on them even after his advances were spurned, acted in a sexist manner, and basically treated women like pieces of meat. However, the creator of Johnny Bravo, Van Partible, sure as hell doesn't think his creation is negative. He wrote the following on his blog for the 20th anniversary of the animation, premiering on Cartoon Network, saying, "I've received wonderful letters from children all over the world expressing their love for the show and drawing cute pictures of Johnny. I even had a man come tell me that Johnny Bravo was the only show he used to watch with his father, because it was the only show that made his dad laugh. Another woman told me it was the favourite show of her autistic daughter, who couldn't get enough of Johnny's voice. There have been numerous games featuring Johnny Bravo over the years, including Johnny Bravo's Big Babe Adventure and Johnny Be Good for mobile phones, Cartoon Network Punch Time Explosion for the Wii and 3DS, and Cartoon Network Block Party for the original Nintendo DS. But by far the worst offender has to be Johnny Bravo in the Hucker Mega Mighty Ultra Extreme Datorama for both the Nintendo DS and PlayStation 2. This is literally a whole game centered around Johnny going on the pool. Absolutely disgusting. For this next example, we are going to take a departure from children's TV shows, which make up all the other entries on this list, and look at a classic primetime production that very much gained a cult following across the world. First debuting on our screens in 1979, the Dukes of Hazzard followed the escapades of Bo and Luke Duke of Hazzard County in rural Georgia. But despite the show being specifically centred around these cousins, the undoubted star of the programme was their car, a bright orange Dodge Charger known affectionately as the General Lee. Now those who know their American history will probably have spotted the main problem with this programme before I've even explained it. You see, the car is named after the man who led the armies of the South in the American Civil War. Because of this, the vehicle that carries his moniker is adorned with a huge Confederate flag that takes up the whole roof. The rise of the Black Lives Matter movement in America saw its followers targeting anything with perceived links to slavery, especially Confederate imagery, such as the flag and statues. Indeed, images and sculptures of General Lee himself were removed from many towns across the south of the United States, and the Confederate flag was removed from official buildings. I think you can probably guess the rest, but the themes and imagery of the Dukes of Hazzard TV show were no longer deemed appropriate by the BLM protesters, and reruns of the TV show were subsequently removed from US TV networks. However, here in the UK, the show can still be viewed unedited on Forces TV, alongside other 80s classics like Knight Rider and the A-Team. I have never had an African American come up to me and have any problem with it whatsoever, John Schneider, who played Bo Duke on the CBS series, told The Hollywood Reporter. The whole politically correct generation has gotten way out of hand. Schneider's co-star Tom Wopat, who played Bo's cousin Luke Duke, acknowledges that the situation in the country has obviously changed in the last 40 years, adding that I feel fortunate to be living at a time when we can address some of the injustices of the past. He stresses that the car is innocent. Dukes of Hazzard is a unifying force, Schneider adds. Mum, Grandma, everyone wanted to watch it together, but who benefits from division? The Dukes of Hazzard has been shot down, I believe unfairly. Obviously, the huge success of the TV show during the 80s led to numerous video games being created around it. There were 2 Dukes of Hazzard games for the Atari 2600, neither of which was ever released, most strangely, a rather generic driving game for the ColecoVision, a UK developed affair by Elite Systems for the Commodore 64 and ZX Spectrum, as well as several games for the PlayStation 1 and 2, including one that features the voices of the original cast. Undoubtedly one of the highest profile candidates for cancel culture when it comes to kids' TV shows is Bugs Bunny. Now you might be wondering how the comical escapades of a carrot crunching bunny upset people, but it wasn't Bugs as such that received people's ire. It was his 2 most well known antagonists, Elmer Fudd and Yosemite Sam, or more specifically their flagrant use of firearms. Elmer Fudd and Yosemite Sam are sporting different looks in the Looney Tunes cartoons, launched on the new streaming service HBO Max. Whilst their outfits remain the same, both will no longer be carrying guns. The cartoons will still have plenty of sticks of Acme Dynamite and cartoon violence, but Fudd will no longer carry his oversized hunting rifle, and Sam won't have his pistols. We're just not doing guns, executive producer and showrunner Peter Braungart said in an interview with the New York Times. Obviously there's been an insane amount of games featuring Bugs over the years, far too many to mention in fact, but I want to focus on a couple of games in particular. Firstly, we have Bugs Bunny Rabbit Rampage, which was published exclusively for the Super Nintendo by Sunsoft in 1994. Here, the player controls Bugs Bunny as he fights off many of the traditional Looney Tunes villains in order to confront the main villain of the story, animator Daffy Duck. The game's title is derived from the 1955 animated short of the same name, which follows a similar plot of bugs at the mercy of an antagonistic animator, who is revealed to be Elmer Fudd. Given the violent actions of Mr. Fudd in this game, and yes, you've guessed it, Yosemite Sam, who both feature prominently on the game's cover, I'm sure you'll agree that this is a prime candidate for cancellation. Secondly, we have one of the earliest Bugs Bunny video games in this title for the Atari 2600. It's a fairly simple platform game that is much harder than it looks, but features some particularly outstanding graphics and sound. Well, for the time anyway. As each level starts, Elmer Fudd sends his hunting dog out to find bugs, and this results in the canine digging up one of the many carrots on the screen, which causes a hole to appear. As soon as he sees bugs, Elmer starts shooting, and the only way you can escape his bullets is to dive into one of those aforementioned holes. To make it easier for kids, the difficulty switches can be used to change the size of the holes. The larger they are, the easier they are to leap into. Given this game is focused solely around bugs, and Elmer, with the later fixated on blowing his head off, is perhaps even more outrageous to the Twitter hate mob than all the others. As utterly shameful and offensive the other four entries are, there is no way I could not end this video without discussing the controversy and subsequent cancelling of author Dr. Theodore Seuss Geisel and his ever popular Dr. Seuss branded books. After many murmurings online and heated debates on social media about the content of his books that were first published in 1975, the estate of the famed cartoonist and funny man issued the following statement. Today, on Dr. Seuss's birthday, Dr. Seuss Enterprises celebrates reading and also our mission to support all children and families with messages of hope, inspiration, inclusion and friendship. We are committed to action to that end. Dr. Seuss Enterprises, working with a panel of experts, including educators, reviewed our catalogue of titles and made the decision last year to cease publication and licensing of the following titles. And to think that I saw it on Mulberry Street, If I Ran the Zoo, McGilligut's Pool, On Beyond Zebra, Scrambled Egg Super, and The Cat's Quizzer. These books portray people in ways that are hurtful and wrong. Ceasing sales of these books is only part of our commitment and broader plan to ensure Dr. Seuss Enterprises' catalogue represents and supports all communities and families. This was in retaliation to complaints from people that the books featured racially offensive imagery and outdated stereotypes that would obviously warp the minds of young children, completely ignoring the fact that the vast majority of characters in the books aren't even human. Always being one to bow to the wokerati where possible, US President Joe Biden was keen to jump on the bandwagon and subsequently removed Dr. Seuss's books from the annual Read Across America Day. Since 1998, this event has taken place on the 2nd of March, the day of Geisel's birth, to apparently remind Americans that they need to read books. If this wasn't already comical enough, old Uncle Joe was subsequently mocked by UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who purposely organised a media event of him reading one of Dr. Seuss's books to children in an English school. So what about video games based on the works of Dr. Seuss then? Well, there's a Cat in the Hat game for the PC, PlayStation 2 and Xbox that was released in 2003 by Vivendi with an alternative version for the Game Boy Advance. Then there are several other games based on his books for the popular Nintendo handheld too, including Green Eggs and Ham and The Grinch. Speaking of The Grinch, you also got a game for the PlayStation and Sega Dreamcast too. There's been numerous more educational styled games based on his properties too, but the very earliest Dr. Seuss game appeared way back in 1984 for the ColecoVision console as well as the Atari 8-bit computers. Dr. Seuss Fix Up and Mix Up Puzzler, to use its full tongue-twisting title, is basically one of those sliding block games we all played as kids in pixel form. To switch around all the squares until they're all in the right place and sit back in horror at the offensive imagery on your screen before setting fire to the cartridge and throwing it out the window.
And that's all, folks.
And that rounds up my look at 5 video games that cancel culture hasn't yet cancelled. You better head to eBay and buy them all before they catch on. What other games can you think of that would fit into this list? Or are you just too offended by what you saw to ever play them? I always love to read the thoughts and views of my audience, so please get typing in that comment section. Before I go though, I must thank all of my loyal patrons for continuing to support my channel and make videos like this possible. However, I must give special thanks to the following patrons in particular for their much appreciated pledges: Mitchell Valentino, Neptune, Seth A. Robinson, Carl Olsen, Dos Gamerman, Nathan Davino, and Electron Startlabs. If you also want to help support all my creative endeavours, including this YouTube channel, then please go and check out my Patreon right now. You can get access to a host of extra content, including downloads, exclusive videos, creative insights, and much more besides. I've been the Laird, and I thank you for watching, and I'll see you all again for another video very soon.